Guys, so today we're going to write a function in vertex form, and we're going to do this using completing the square. So if you'll note in step 4, your vertex form is ax minus h squared plus k. So when you write a function in vertex form, you can easily tell what the vertex is, which is the xy point, that's the middle of the parabola, but it's a significant point, so we notate it as h and k. If a parabola goes upwards, the vertex is known as a minimum, or the lowest point. And if the parabola is facing downwards, the vertex is the maximum, or the highest point. So starting off with how to change the example here into vertex form, we want to make sure a is 1. And remember, a is the coefficient of x squared. They go in order, numbers a, b, and c. So a is not 1, which means I'm going to factor it out. I'm going to factor out the negative 3. And when I factor it out, negative 3x squared over negative 3 would just leave me with 1x squared, which I'll just write there. And then the positive 6x, if I factor out negative 3, I'm left with negative 2x. So I'm only going to factor negative 3 out of the first two terms. I'm going to bring down the minus 2. I'm going to bring down the c value, and the reason for that is because if you look at step 2, I'm going to create my own c value. And there's a reason for that after I will explain. So to create your new c value, you're going to follow the formula right here, b over 2 squared. So b is always the coefficient of x. This would be negative 2 divided by 2 squared. And then PEMDAS tells us parentheses first, so negative 1 squared would just give us 1. So again, just following the formula here, b over 2 squared is how you find your new value of c. So from here, I'm going to bring down everything I just had in my function, but I'm going to leave a little room so I can add my new value of c. So you're going to add and subtract the new value of c to the same side of the equal sign. So why am I doing that? Because here I'm going to add my new value of c, but I can't just add 1 to a function. I have to keep it balanced. So since we're only working on one side of the equal sign, if I'm going to add it, I'm also going to subtract it. So it's like it was never there. But be very careful with your adding to check what it is that you actually added, because in this case, it just looks like you added 1, right? However, if I were to distribute this negative 3 into the parentheses, which I can, I'm not actually adding 1, I'm adding negative 3. So to keep that balanced on the same side of the equal sign, because I'm only working on one side, I'm going to keep it balanced by subtracting negative 3. So I'm going to put that right here, minus negative 3. So I added negative 3, which means to keep it balanced, I'm also going to subtract negative 3. So just make sure that you always check for your GCF to make sure what it is you're actually adding. And from here, step 3, the reason why we created our own c is because we want to factor a perfect square trinomial, meaning in this parentheses, when I factor it, the parentheses will say the same thing, making it a perfect square trinomial. So I'm only going to work in this parentheses. I'm going to take a sidebar here to factor it. X squared minus 2x plus 1. I did do a video tutorial on factoring. So in order to factor, I multiply the first number times the last number. So I need two numbers that multiply to be 1 times 1, which is 1, and add up to be the middle number, which is negative 2. Those two numbers are going to be negative 1 and negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, and negative 1 plus negative 1 is negative 2. So from here, I put the first coefficient and x over each one of these numbers. And each parentheses, or each fraction, represents each parentheses. So the first fraction, which is x over negative 1, is written as x minus 1. And the second fraction, which represents the second parentheses, is also x minus 1. So perfect square trinomial means the parentheses say the same thing when you're done factoring them, and they should. So I would rewrite this as x minus 1 squared. So I am going to rewrite this parentheses as x minus 1 squared. I'm going to bring down everything else, -3 that I haven't used, and I'm going to bring down my value here. So -2 plus 3, because two negatives make a positive. So -2 plus 3 would give me +1. So once we're done, we have this in vertex form. And I'm going to write the vertex form over here, our final answer, -3 x minus 1 squared plus 1. And right underneath it, I'm going to write down your vertex form. So I'm going to write a x minus h squared plus k. So from here, you can easily tell what the vertex is. So just in case, vertex is what's known as h and k. If you see how it lines up, then minus sign lines up. So h is going to be 1, and k is also going to be 1. So this is your vertex form. And you can tell what your vertex is from there. All right, guys, I hope this helps. And then step 4, just note, it's not to write in vertex form, make one side equals 0. It's to solve. So sorry about that. But your vertex form is written here.